"Ma'am, I'm sorry, but you need to order something or leave." The barista's voice was soft but firm. The woman sitting by the window didn't move. She was thin, wrapped in a faded gray coat that looked too big for her frame. Her hands were folded on the table, trembling slightly. She didn't look up. I just needed to sit," she whispered. The cafe was nearly empty. It was 9 p.m. on a Tuesday, and the rain outside was relentless, hammering against the glass like 1,000 tiny fists. The fluorescent lights flickered once, then settled into a dull hum. The barista, a young man named Evan, shifted his weight uncomfortably. He hated this part of the job. "I understand, but I'll pay for her coffee." The voice came from the back corner, near the restroom. A man stood there holding a mop. His uniform was damp, his face lined with exhaustion. His name tag read David Custodian. He was in his late 40s, maybe older. His eyes were kind but tired, like someone who had seen too much and still chose to care. Evan hesitated. "You sure?" David nodded. He walked slowly to the counter, pulled out a crumpled $5 bill, and placed it down. "Black coffee, and whatever she wants." The woman finally looked up. Her eyes were hollow, but something flickered in them: confusion, maybe gratitude. David didn't wait for her to speak. He returned to his corner, wringing out the mop in silence. But inside, his heart was pounding. Because he knew her. He had recognized her the moment she walked in. The shape of her face, the way she held her shoulders, the scar just above her left eyebrow. 20-3 years ago. She had been everything to him, and then she had vanished. David didn't sleep that night. He sat on the edge of his bed in the small studio apartment he rented above a laundromat, staring at a photograph. It was old, edges yellowed, corners bent. In it, 2 teenagers stood side by side in front of a school gate. The boy wore a too big blazer and a nervous smile. The girl had her arm around his shoulder, laughing at something outside the frame. Her name was Claire. They had met in 9th grade. David had been the quiet kid, the one who sat in the back and never raised his hand. Claire was the opposite: loud, fearless, always getting into trouble. She sat next to him one day because there were no other seats left, and by the end of the week, they were inseparable. "You're too serious," she used to say, poking his cheek. "Smile more, life's short." He loved her. Not in the dramatic, movie kind of way. It was quieter than that. It was in the way he saved his lunch money to buy her a birthday gift, in the way he walked her home even when it was raining, in the way he memorized her favorite song just so he could hum it when she was sad, but he never told her, because guys like him didn't get girls like her. Then came senior year. Claire's father lost his job. Her family fell apart. She stopped coming to school. David went to her house once, twice, 10 times. Her mother answered the door, eyes red and distant. "She's not here." "Where is she?" "I don't know." And just like that, she was gone. David spent years searching. He called hospitals, shelters, old friends. Nothing. Eventually, life moved on. He got a job, lost it, got another, lost that too. He made mistakes, bad ones. He trusted the wrong people, borrowed money he couldn't pay back, and one day woke up on a park bench with nothing but the clothes on his back. It took him 5 years to claw his way back. A custodian job, a tiny apartment, a life that wasn't much, but it was his. And now, after all this time, she had walked back into his world, but she didn't recognize him. She came back the next night, at the same time, same seat by the window, same gray coat. This time, she ordered a small coffee herself, counting out coins with shaking hands. Evan served her without a word. David watched from the corner, pretending to sweep the same spot for the 3rd time. He wanted to speak to her, but what would he say? "Do you remember me? Where did you go? Why didn't you come back?" The questions burned in his chest, but he swallowed them down. Because he saw the way she sat hunched, like the world was pressing down on her shoulders. He saw the bruises on her wrists, faint but unmistakable. He saw the way she flinched when the door opened too loudly. She wasn't the Claire he remembered. This woman was broken, and maybe she didn't want to be found, so he said nothing. He just made sure she had a coffee every night. Sometimes he paid, sometimes she did. And slowly, over the next 2 weeks, a routine formed. She would sit, he would clean, and neither would speak. But something was growing between them. Something unspoken. A silent understanding, like 2 people standing in the rain, sharing an umbrella without asking each other's names. One night, as he was mopping near her table, she spoke. "Why do you keep helping me?" Her voice was quiet, cracked at the edges. David froze. He didn't look at her. "Because someone helped me once," he said, "when I needed it most." She was silent for a long time. Then she said, "Thank you." He nodded, and for the first time in years he felt something warm spread through his chest. Hope. It happened on a Friday. The cafe was busier than usual. A group of college students laughed too loudly in the corner. A couple argued near the counter, and Claire sat by the window, staring into her coffee like it held answers. David noticed she was shaking more than usual. He walked over, slowly, carefully. "You okay?" She didn't answer. Her breathing was shallow. Her hands gripped the cup so tightly her knuckles turned white. "Ma'am." And then she looked up at him. Her eyes were filled with tears. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered. The cafe noise faded. It was just the two of them. Do what? David asked gently. Pretend. Her voice broke. Pretend I'm fine. Pretend I'm not drowning. David's heart clenched. He wanted to reach out, to hold her hand, to tell her everything would be okay, but he didn't. Instead, he pulled out the chair across from her and sat down. Then don't pretend, he said. Not here. Not with me. And she shattered. She told him everything, how she had left home because her stepfather had hurt her, how she had lived on the streets for years, how she had been used, beaten, discarded, how she had a daughter, once a baby girl. She gave up because she couldn't take care of her. I named her Emma, she said, tears streaming down her face. I held her for 10 minutes, then they took her away. David's throat tightened. I tried to find her, Claire continued, but I had nothing, no address, no money, no name to give them. I failed her. I failed everyone. She covered her face with her hands and sobbed. David didn't think. He reached across the table and took her hand. You didn't fail, he said quietly. You survived, and that takes more strength than anything. She looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time. Who are you? She asked. He smiled, sad and soft. Someone who never forgot you, David. Her voice was barely a whisper. He nodded. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She stared at him like he was a ghost. I didn't recognize you, she said, her voice cracking. It's been a long time. Yoshi swallowed hard. You were the boy who walked me home, who gave me his lunch, who never judged me. Yeah, he said. That was me. Tears filled her eyes again. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I left. You don't have to apologize, but I do. Her voice broke. You deserved better. You deserved a friend who stayed. David shook his head. You did what you had to do. I get that now. They sat in silence for a long time. The cafe buzzed around them, but they didn't hear it. Finally, Claire spoke. I thought about you, she said. A lot, especially when things were bad. I would remember your face and think, maybe someone good still existed in the world. David's chest tightened. You were the one who was good, he said. You made me believe I mattered. No one else did that. She reached across the table and held his hand tighter. I'm so tired, David, she whispered. I don't know how much longer I can keep going. Then don't go alone, he said. Let me help you. Why? She asked. Why would you help me after all this time? He looked at her, really looked at her, and said the truth. Because I never stopped caring about you. 3 weeks later, Claire moved into a shelter David had found for her. It wasn't much, a small room with a bed, a desk, and a window that overlooked a parking lot, but it was safe. And for the first time in years, she could sleep without fear. David visited her every day after work. He brought her food, books, sometimes just sat with her in silence. Slowly, she began to heal. Not fully, not quickly, but enough. One evening, she handed him an envelope. What's this? He asked. Open it. Inside was a letter. The handwriting was messy, like it had been written in a hurry. It was addressed to Emma. David looked up at Claire, confused. I found her, she said quietly. His heart stopped. How? The shelter has a social worker. She helped me search. Took 3 weeks, but she's alive. She's 17. She lives 2 hours from here. David stared at the letter. Are you going to see her? He asked. Claire's eyes filled with tears. I don't know if I should, she whispered. What if she hates me? What if she doesn't want to know me? David set the letter down and took her hands. Then you give her the choice, he said. But you owe it to yourself and to her to try. Claire nodded, tears streaming down her face. Will you come with me? She asked. Always, he said. They drove in silence. Claire sat in the passenger seat, clutching the letter like it was the only thing keeping her alive. David kept his eyes on the road, his hand steady on the wheel, even though his heart was racing. The address led them to a small suburban house with a neat lawn and a swing set in the back. A woman answered the door. Emma's adoptive mother. She was kind, cautious, but understanding. She knows you're coming, the woman said, but she's nervous. So am I, Claire whispered. They were led to the living room, and there she was. Emma. She had Claire's eyes, David's heart. She was beautiful, poised, but her hands were shaking just like her mother's. Claire stood frozen. Emma spoke first. Hi, she said softly. Hi, Claire breathed. They stared at each other for a long moment. Then Emma said, Why now? Claire's voice cracked. Because I finally had the courage, and before I was broken. I didn't think I deserved you. Emma's eyes filled with tears. I used to wonder if you thought about me, she said. Every single day, Claire whispered. Emma walked forward, slowly, carefully, and then she hugged her mother. Claire collapsed into her arms, sobbing. David stood by the door, tears streaming down his face, watching the two of them hold each other like the world had finally stopped breaking. A year later, David stood outside the cafe. It was the same one, the same window, same rain, but everything was different. Claire worked there now as a barista. She had rebuilt her life, piece by piece. She saw Emma every month. They were learning to be a family. David still came by, not as a customer, as a friend. One evening, as the cafe closed, Claire walked up to him. Thank you, she said. For what? For seeing me when I couldn't see myself. David smiled. You did the hard part, he said. I just reminded you that you could. She hugged him, and for the first time in decades, David felt like he had done something that mattered. Moral: sometimes the people we save are the ones who save us first.